UN Women, and I wanted to, before we kick everything off, I would like to ask my colleague Hiba El-Jardali to give us a few words as well, please. Hiba, over to you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Welcome, ladies. We are very happy that you are with us today. I would like to thank you all, and just to let you know that these trainings are happening within the program, the UN Women program. It's a flagship program initiative on stimulating equal opportunities for women entrepreneurs in the UAE. And this program is supported by NAMA Women Advancement Establishment. As you know, NAMA have been always supporting women's economic empowerment programs through worldwide, and they are indicative partners for UN Women. Thank you so much. Enjoy your session, and hopefully it will bring you benefit and tips to run your business.
Thanks, Hiba. Okay, so today for the session, we have both myself, Jen, and Gemma, who's going to be running the session. Now, I'm doing the session today with Gemma. I'm not an accountant like Gemma is, but I have been an entrepreneur for close to 20 years. And I am really passionate about the topic of finance and getting your finance systems right, because it is probably the most important thing that you can do for your business right at the very beginning. But I wasn't always like this. And I was one of those people who I failed maths in school. I'm actually dyslexic when it comes to numbers. I have something called dyscalculia, which means that I really struggle with numbers. So it's something that I need to focus on a lot, but I've also gotten very good at for my business, because it's one of the things that you need to be able to do to grow your business. So the reason why I say that is because when I speak with a lot of female entrepreneurs, I think that a lot of times women have this fear of numbers and maths and think, oh, no, it's not for me. And we focus so much on our business and doing the stuff that we like, but this is one of the things that we also need to do. So it's a bit of a mindset issue when it comes to money, and we'll speak about that today as well. But it's something that absolutely all of you are able to do as well. So Gemma, do you want to tell everybody why you're here and a bit about your background, and then we'll kick it all off?
Yeah, so I'm Gemma. I'm the owner of Full Figure Accountancy and a mum of two. I qualified as an accountant 15 years ago and worked for a company as a financial controller for 6 years, and then decided to
Excuse me, Gemma, I think your sound is not so clear.
Yeah, and I think also, ladies, everybody who's in here, can you please mute yourselves, because there's a few ladies, I think, who have their microphones on and we hear a bit of background noise. Gemma, can you maybe go a bit closer to your microphone just so we can hear you?
Yeah, how's this? Is this okay?
Better, yeah.
So yeah, I took a bit of a leap 2 years ago and decided to set up on my own. I was really passionate about helping small businesses really understand their numbers and not feel so daunted by their accounts. So it's been a great journey in which I've helped some really great entrepreneurs, and I think that a lot of them really look forward to receiving their accounts every month now. And I've also met some really inspiring and inspirational women on the way, which have helped me grow my business. So yeah.
Excellent. Okay, and that's the thing, is that I think with today's session, what we're hoping is that we're going to help you feel less daunted by business and finance and accounting. And when UN Women did a survey, this was actually one of the biggest things that came up from the UN Women survey was finance and accounting issues for business. So we felt that it was really important right at the very beginning, and we will do more detailed sessions, but one of the ones that we wanted to do right at the beginning for you. So in today's session, we're going to cover a few areas. We're going to look at budgeting basics and performance measurement. We're going to look at how you set up an accounting system and what sort of financial reports you need for your business. We're also going to talk about accounting software because I know some people are using it, some people aren't. So we're going to look at what it can do for you and how it can help you grow your business. We're also going to talk about VAT. I know that not everybody is there yet for VAT, but we're going to talk about what steps you need to do, because it's not just all of a sudden you hit the threshold and you start doing VAT. There's things that you need to do in advance for that. And then we're going to do a little bonus section that I wanted to add on, which I've called Are You Leaving Money on the Table? Where I'm going to talk about ways that you're going to be able to get more money into your business, or maybe some gaps where you're missing out on getting more money into your business. Next slide, please, Kelly Whitehead. So in session 1, we're going to be looking at budgeting basics. And I'm sure that some of you probably know all of this, but I want to make sure that we're all on the same page with this as well, because I know some business owners who have been in business for a number of years actually don't know this either. So before we kick that off, we have a little question for you. If you can move to the next slide, please, Cal. So how many of you know your monthly sales, and do you know your monthly profit and loss? We have a quiz. Hiba, if you can just launch the poll question, please. I'd like everybody to fill that in, or if you don't have that, if you can also go and write it in the chat box. How many of you know your monthly sales, and do you know your monthly profit?
Does it
And you know, there's no, I think the poll should have popped up there now. There's no judgment either with any of this. Look, there's no, please be honest, because we're here to help you and we're here to help you grow your business as well. So please be honest with all of these.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Does it count if I know the overall sales and profits, or is it on a monthly basis?
Well, you should be knowing your monthly as well as your annual ones as well, because it's something that as a small business owner, we should be tracking it month by month as well.
Okay.
Hi, good morning.
Hi.
Hi, so my business works on quarterly targets rather than monthly, because we don't invoice on a monthly basis, we invoice on a quarterly basis. How would I don't know how to answer this question because I don't look at the monthly figures.
Gemma?
Yeah, I mean, if your business invoices, it has a slightly different model and it invoices quarterly, then yeah, you would answer, yes, you do know your sales for your business.
Thank you.
Okay, we're just going to give it a few more seconds. We have most people who have voted already. Okay.
We're gonna end polling, right?
Yeah, let's end the poll and just bring that up. Okay, so about 2/3 of you do know your monthly sales, but then when it looks at your monthly profits and loss, about 41%, 59% don't know their monthly profit and loss. Okay, that's fine. We're going to look into a little bit more detail on that. So Kelly, if we can have the next slide, please. So one of the first things we wanted to look at is business costs. When I speak with a lot of entrepreneurs, oftentimes they're thinking about how much that they're selling, but they're not thinking about what their costs are within the business. And when you don't know what the costs are within your business, it makes it very difficult for you to have the big holistic view about how your business is doing, where your business is going. And so we need to understand what those costs are. And there's a whole range of different costs. You have everything from startup costs, and that could be things like your trade licenses and permits and PRO fees, the costs of your goods sold, and your operating costs, which are broken down into fixed and variable. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to break that down even further, so we give you a bit of an explanation. So when we look at operating costs, it really depends on the type of business that you have, because some of you have home-based businesses or you're working with e-trader licenses, and so your operating costs are going to be much lower than somebody who has a physical office or maybe has a factory or warehouse. But your operating costs are going to be in areas such as your utilities, your employee costs. And oftentimes we forget just all of those costs if you're hiring people, that it comes to your salaries, your gratuities, your sponsorship, your PRO fees that you have for your employees, the flight tickets home that you need to have for them, your company formation fees, as we were talking about, and other things such as rent, advertising, any travel that you need to do for your business, any subscriptions that you need to have, any credit card fees that you have if you're accepting online payments, because remember, we do have quite high credit card fees sometimes, so that has to be subtracted from your operating costs as well. And then we have something called variable costs, and those are that they vary every month. They're not fixed, they're going to be varying. And that could be things like commission that you're paying to your employees. It could be freight and delivery if you're bringing products in, customs charges, courier charges for sending your products out, costs of changing inventory if you need to change them around, material costs, things like packaging as well if you're sending out different products to customers. So those are what we consider as variable costs. Now, the other thing that people need to look at is how much it costs to deliver your product or service. So that is what we call our gross profit. So the gross profit is your selling price minus the cost of your goods sold. That equals your gross profit. So we wanted to give you an example. We have come up with a fictional character called Fatma, and she has a jewelry business and she sells on Instagram and at markets. So she's selling necklaces, and she has a necklace that she sells for 200 dirhams. But that necklace costs her 125 dirhams to make. So her gross profit is 75 dirhams. But that's actually not her profit, because we have something else where we need to look at this. So first of all, we have Fatma. Let's say that Fatma, let's look at her total revenue. So she's making 30 necklaces. She sells them at 200 dirhams. So in a month, she sells 6,000 dirhams of necklaces. Her cost for making that is 125 a piece. So 3,750 dirhams is her cost of good. So her gross profit for the month is 2,250. But we need to break that down further. And that's not her profit, because she has other costs, right? Because that subtracts the cost of her goods or services from the profit. But we need to look at what we call the net profit. And for that, we need to know our operating costs. So remember how I gave you all of those other costs that we might have as a business? We need to take those and we need to subtract them. So if we look at Fatma again, and we look at her costs in a month of April, so she has other costs that she has. She has to send out, let's say 15 of those necklaces that she sells on Instagram, she needs to courier them. That costs her 30 dirhams a piece. She's also selling at markets. She spent 600 dirhams in a month going to markets. And she's also paid for shipping from China to the UAE for her materials. She has a part-time helper that she's paying, and she's also using Zabuni for her payments online. So she's paying 3.5% commission on those fees that she has as well. So her operating costs are 1,640. So at first, Fatma was really happy, thinking, yay, I've sold 6,000 dirhams worth of necklaces this month. But actually, at the end of the month, all she ends up with is 610 dirhams profit. Does anybody have any questions about that?
Hi, if you can please make sure the slide is visible to everyone. It's mostly cut on the right side.
Are you seeing the presentation on your phone or an iPad?
Correct. Yeah, we cannot see it all. We can see it.
Yes. So if that's a problem with using it on a phone. So it's much better if you have a computer.
No, I'm on a computer. I'm not on a phone.
Yeah. So everybody else is coming up saying that they can see it. So I think it might just be the settings on your device.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
It's all full screen, but still I cannot see it. I don't know. Let me try.
Yeah, you might just try, if you look on the top right-hand side, there's something called view. Try changing the view of your slide. So change it to standard, and you should be able to get a better view, okay? All right, so Gemma, let's talk about, yes.
In terms of calculating gross profit or net profit for a month, for example, let's say I'm paying a license fee once in a year, right? So do I need to split it over the year to find out?
That's a good question, because we're just talking about that in this slide.
Okay, great.
Gemma, over to you.
Yeah. The answer to that question is yes, you split it over your 12 months when you're doing your monthly accounts. However, if you wanted to take an annual view, which we're going to do on this slide to calculate break even, in the example that Jen's just gone through, Fatima made 75 dirhams per necklace. If her annual fixed costs, which would be her licensing, her visa, her travel costs and telephone costs and all that kind of thing, were 15,000 dirhams, how many necklaces does she need to sell over the year to break even? So our question to you is, would you know how to calculate that? And if not, we're going to go in a bit more detail to show you how that can be done. So,
yeah, Kay's just saying the joys of accruals and prepayments.
Exactly. Yeah, so if her fixed costs were 15,000 dirhams, we would divide that by the gross profit that she made on each necklace, which was 75 dirhams. Therefore, she would need to sell 200 pieces of the necklace to break even. And then as a business owner, you can use that information to say, okay, if I sell 300 pieces of the necklace, this is the excess profit that I'll make, and how can I use that excess profit within my business to grow? What can I invest in? More Google Ads, more better website, reinvestment in stock to grow the business a bit further, that kind of thing.
And the reason why we're talking about this is oftentimes when, I think Gemma and I were both discussing that when we speak with female entrepreneurs, sometimes even ones who've been in business for a while, is that they're actually not digging deep enough into what all of their costs are for their business, and not considering some of the bigger costs. And so because of that, they don't have the overall picture about how profitable or not their business is, and also if they're setting their pricing at the correct level as well. And this is one of the things that we wanted to point out. Now, we're not going to go into a lot of detail on this, but one of the things that I say to a lot of entrepreneurs is your pricing right? Have you really researched your pricing, and do you have the right pricing? Because as somebody pointed out in the chat box as well, that they think that Fatma's pricing for her necklaces are too low, or maybe the cost that she's paying to produce her necklaces is too high, and she needs to look at other ways of getting that lower so she would be able to make more profit. And every industry has a different rule, but technically they say the rule of thumb is really to set your selling price at twice your cost of goods sold. But it depends upon what you're selling and who you're selling it to, because sometimes that might be 3 times or 4 times, or it might be half the price. There's so many different factors, and there's not one set rule, because every industry and every market is different. But it is something that when you have this clearer picture, you're able to have that view and look at it and go, oh, is our pricing right? Do we need to change something? And but this is why we need to know our numbers.
Hello, sorry, I just have a little question.
Could I ask, would it be possible, could people put their questions in the chat box? Because Gemma and I have quite a few slides. We want to make this super interactive for all of you, but it would be a bit easier if we could answer it from the chat box, because we might be answering the question on the next slide, if that's okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Cal, let's move over to the next slide. So just to address it, one other person said as well that how does it work for those who are in services or knowledge-based businesses? Now, it is pretty much the same, that, you know, we're selling a service, we're not selling a product. For example, I have a services-based business as well. And typically in a services-based business, again, it depends upon your industry, that you might be charging 2 or 3 times the amount of what your costs are as well. It really depends upon what your service or your knowledge-based business is. But one thing for sure is that you need to be able to make a profit. We're in business to make a profit. We're not in business to make a loss. And as part of that, we want to be able to have a salary for ourselves. We want to be able to invest in our businesses so we're able to grow our businesses, because you don't want to be working for free. We're in business because we want to be able to have that freedom so we can pay ourselves and have a more flexible lifestyle as well. So I have a question for all of you. And again, Hiba, if you can please bring up the poll. How many of you have a bank account in your company's name? Yes, Poonam, the slides and the presentation will be shared. We're working on getting an online training portal for UN Women. And this session, as well as the other sessions that we've run for UN Women, will all be on the training portal as well. So you need to give us a couple of weeks because it's just taking some time to get it all done. But then as attendees of all of these workshops, you will get an invitation to join the training portal where you will get access to everything as well. Okay, that's interesting. So we've got roughly 54% of people don't have a bank account in their company name, and 46% of people do. Okay. Hiba, if you would like to end the poll, please. This is really, really interesting and something that we talk about a lot with female entrepreneurs. Gemma, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's very important that, can everybody hear me okay? Is that okay?
Yes.
It's very important that if possible, that you have a bank account in your business name and all of your business expenses go through that account, and you pay yourself a salary for your personal expenses. It's very hard to track if you are monitoring your business expenses through your personal account, and then it's also very hard to track and know the performance of your business on a monthly basis when you're doing it in this way.
And we'll go into more detail and speak about this. And I know some of you, and one of the things that we hear as well is that women say that it's very difficult to open up a bank account in their company name. And yes, we understand that. And yes, that's something actually that UN Women is working on as well, to speak with banks and to address that. And I know that different licensing authorities have arrangements with different banks, but it is important and it is possible with certain banks to have a bank account in your name. Yeah, and Verona says that it took 2 months to open a bank account. It really depends. And one of the things that I hear from banks as well is that sometimes the reason why it takes so long is they have to go through something like called Know Your Customer compliance, and they need to request a lot of documents. And I know sometimes that banks are not always the most organized and don't ask all of the information from you in the beginning, but also that what I hear from banks too is that they say that customers don't always give them all of the full information, so they have to go back a few times for more requests, which is where delays happen sometimes as well. And yes, I think a few people are mentioning NeoBiz with Mashrak and also Rackbanker too, which are bank accounts which seem to be quite positive and opening up accounts for small businesses. So definitely those are ones to look at if you're struggling to get a bank account. Okay, Cal, next slide, please. And this is a super important area which Gemma is going to talk to us all about from an accounting perspective. Take it away, Gemma.
Yeah, so setting up an accounting system is extremely important for your business. Kelly, can I get the next slide, please? The benefits of having an accounting system and an accounting process. It's very important to be able to track the progress month on month and year on year. When you're growing in a new business, it's important for you to be able to grow so that you can see the differences in your sales targets against budget, your differences in sales targets against prior year. And it's really important that you have that information quickly after the month end so that you can be reactive on that and you can make changes and look at different sales funnels if needed. And it really helps target your sales. The next point would be consistent tracking saves the headache of trying to backtrack through your records. A lot of my new clients come to me after trading for 12 to 18 months, and it is absolutely a headache to go back and reconcile the bank and find the expenses and track all of the data at a point when your business, when it's 12 to 18 months in, is probably growing and you don't have that time. And it can also be more expensive. So it's very important in whatever way you can to track everything from day one. Yeah, I guess I just touched on this, but it really helps you focus and drive your sales targets. I have a few clients who we set monthly sales targets for, and they actually want weekly reviews because during the month they're desperate to know how close am I to hitting that number. And it really motivates, I think, as well. Next slide. Yeah, being close to your costs each month. So if you're receiving your monthly accounts within a few weeks of your month end, you're going to be really close to your costs so that you can make quick decisions about when you look at your profit, where you can maybe cut costs. If you're down against budget, where you can maybe increase your spend a little bit to grow the business a bit more. It just means that you are more reactive and able to make quick decisions. And for a lot of SMEs, the medium to long-term plan might be to sell their business on, and also in the same way look for investment. If as it's growing, they need investors. And to do this, you need to have 3 to 5 years of solid accounts. That's what buyers want to see. So it's important to have this from day one rather than to be always backtracking or trying to get information or then starting from a point in time when actually your business had started a few years before and you did have valuable data available.
It's, you know, Gemma, I really feel that it's so critical to get that right. Now, it also depends as well on where your trade license is from, because some entity or some free zones also request that you have to have audited accounts every year. Even if you have a virtual office, you still have to submit audited accounts. And I've also heard from accountants as well that they've had clients not have a system, sending out invoices to clients in kind of a haphazard way and not tracking it. And then at the end of the year, when it comes time to renew their trade license, the free zone authority that they're with says, well, where's your audited accounts? And they find an auditor, give them everything, and all of a sudden, all of that needs to be audited, and it's expensive and it's messy as well.
Stressful, very stressful for the business owners, I think, as well.
Yeah. So Hiba, could you launch the next poll, please? We have a question about invoicing. We'd like to know how you're issuing invoices to your clients right now. So when you issue an invoice, how do you issue it? Are you issuing it from an accounting software, or are you creating an invoice in Word, Excel, or you just email the bank account number, or you just email or WhatsApp your client and ask for a check? Okay. Yeah, please keep filling this in, ladies, because it's really interesting as well to see how you're doing invoicing, because we're hoping at the end of this session as well, we're going to give you some ideas on how you can streamline your finances and make things a bit easier for you to run your business. Violetta has a question, actually, while we're waiting, Gemma, where she says, does she have to give invoices when she has walk-in customers at a market stall, for example?
Yes, so I think with a lot of the payment platforms, if you can give a receipt, that's best. If you are registered for VAT, you must give a VAT receipt.
Yeah.
That question.
Okay, right. So let's close the poll, have a look at this. So about 35% of you are using online accounting software, and then the rest are using a variation of creating your invoices in Word or Excel, or just emailing the bank account number. One person is asking for checks as well. So we'll talk about this in a little bit more detail about what best practice would be and how you do this. Before we do that, one last question. Samaya wants to know, and I know a few ladies are working in affiliate marketing. She says in affiliate marketing, do you have to give invoices since all payments and conversions are tracking through the tracking system?
So what does she mean, like payment gateway?
Yeah, so I think basically if she would have an affiliate commission for certain people around the world, that she would probably just pay them through PayPal or something like that. That's typically how that works.
Yeah, so then the client will receive the PayPal sort of tax invoice receipt format that they have. But for her own records, she must raise an invoice on an accounting system or in whatever way that you decide to track it, to be able to track your own sales. Because PayPal telefunction, they don't provide accounts. We need to keep that.
Yeah. And it also depends upon how big your business is and if you reach the VAT threshold as well. And we'll speak a bit more about, because how you keep your books when you reach the VAT threshold is different as well. And then one other question, someone says we use cash on delivery and we don't provide invoices. Gemma, what's your view on that?
Yeah, you really should be providing invoices. You need to provide invoices anyway for your own systems. And it's particularly important, as Jen just mentioned, when we reach the VAT threshold. So it's important that you have these processes in place anyway from day one, just to make it smoother going forward.
Okay, I know it maybe sounds a little bit scary, but I promise you, if you get a system set up that works for you, it's going to make your life so much easier. Short-term pain for long-term gain, I promise you, ladies. Okay, Gemma, let's talk a bit more about this in a bit more detail.
Okay, so reports that you need to run your business on a monthly basis, they don't have to be extremely detailed. It can be a snapshot of data as a really effective tool to help you grow. But my clients like to see P&L, and they like to see that monthly, year to date, and also against budget in prior year. And balance sheet. So your balance sheet will show you the value of your receivables, the amount due to you, your payables, the amount that you're due to pay, and any assets and stock and cash that you have as well. So it gives you sort of a net asset value for your business at any point in time. Cash flow. This is also very crucial. A lot of my clients, when they start with me, base their performance on the amount of cash that they have in the bank at any month end. But cash flow sort of works alongside the P&L and the balance sheet. It's important to not just know how much cash you have in the bank at the month end, but also your profitability. So understanding your cash in and your cash out position can really help you plan for your long-term overheads, if your licensing's due, if you want to invest, and that kind of thing.
It will help as well because, you know, we often hear from ladies too that they're like, oh my God, my license is coming up and I don't have the money for it. And if you have that system in place, you're able to allocate your funds. So you don't just go, oh, I've got 100,000 dirhams in the bank. I'm going to the Maldives for a week of holiday, and then realize that you have costs that are coming up as well. So it really helps you plan much better within your business, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And the break-even point, which we looked at earlier, is the amount of sales that you need to be able to cover your fixed overheads.
And helps you also identify as well if your pricing is right.
Yeah.
Because as we saw with Fatma, it looks like either she's not charging enough for her necklaces or she's paying too much to go and produce those necklaces and needs to find a way to increase her profit.
And this is an example of some of the data. You know, a lot of business owners don't want to be daunted by hundreds of reports to review and look at. So a snapshot of data can be just as effective. And this is an example of the kind of thing that people can look at on a monthly basis. So you can see here, sales, cost of sales directly attributable to the sales, gives you your gross margin, which is pretty much what Jen went through earlier. And then that gives you your gross margin percentage. And then you've got your overheads, your profit, and your profit percentage to come up with your net profit there.
And this actually is done in a spreadsheet rather than looking like a pretty pink thing designed for a PowerPoint to look nicer. So your accountant will give it to you in an Excel spreadsheet. So does if anybody has any questions about reports, there's a lot of people asking about accounting software, and we're just going to dip into that right now and suggested systems as well. Gemma has a favorite, but we're going to talk about a number of different systems because different businesses need different types of systems, and some are really the Ferrari of accounting systems, and others are a bit more basic, and it depends what will be best for your business.
Yeah. So the accounting systems that I've reviewed are the ones that I find perfect for SMEs. It'd be really interesting actually if we can then do a poll here of what accounting software you use, just so I can get a feel for that as well.
Hiba, can we have the poll, please? Good morning, Shambhavi. You've just popped up on my screen. One of the few who has her. Shambhavi comes to every training. So nice to see you this morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And yes, it's a pleasure. And I'm learning so much. And I know I'm so behind, but it's definitely an eye-opener out here. Thank you so much for doing these for us. Thank you.
Do you know, this is one of the things that scared me the most when I first set up my business. And it's one of the most important. And I remember as well, when I was doing invoices with my business in the beginning, I was doing them on Word because I had never owned a business. I didn't know any better. You know, and I ended up having to look up on the internet how to do that. Now, I set up my first business 20 years ago, and so how things were done then is quite different. But it is something that is so important to get right, and it will make your life way easier. Okay, so it looks like, Gemma, we've got maybe about 20%, 25% are using accounting software.
Yeah.
Ladies, if you can fill in the poll, we've only got 60% who have voted. It really helps us to understand, and also as well, it helps UN Women to understand where you are now and how we can plan and look at other workshops that will benefit you in the future as well. So it's great if you can fill in these polls because it helps us understand you and some of your challenges and where you are in your business. So we've got 65% who have voted. If the rest of you can pop your vote in as well, that would be fabulous, please.
I think there's some questions come in on, does Shopify, you know, Shopify is, it doesn't count. You need to have a separate accounting software. And there are apps that you can have. I've got a couple of clients that use them that link their online platform to their accounting software. So automatically when you do a sale on Shopify, the invoice will get created in QuickBooks and your stock would be updated. So it's a really good tool to have, and you can add that on as an add-on to certain softwares.
Hiba, could we end the poll, please? Okay, so super interesting. A lot of you are doing your invoices on Excel, which I think is quite common. A lot of businesses are doing that. But again, there are better ways to do that. And Gemma's going to talk you through a bit about the accounting softwares and what you can expect, because if you use an accounting software, it's going to make it so much easier to issue your invoices. I don't know how long it takes you to do an invoice in Excel, but when I use my online accounting software, it takes me less than a minute to issue my invoice, and it looks so pretty and everything is there. The bank account details are on it, the logo, the branding, the font, everything is within my company styles. So you can have your invoices looking super pretty, and you can also connect it to online payments as well to have your client pay you online or to do a bank transfer to you. Okay, Hiba, if you just want to share the results of the poll, and then we're going to do a deep dive into accounting software, because you're all asking us what is the best. And there's no number one system. It all depends on your business and what works for you. Can I ask people as well not to use the annotation tool, because it's just a pain and it means that I have to go in and fix it, please?
I apologize, Jen. I don't think I've done that. But
No, I think somebody else has.
Okay,
So
interesting. Sorry.
it's fine. I'll go through and fix that.
Okay, so we're going to look at QuickBooks, one of the most popular, Xero as well, which is very popular, Zoho and FreshBooks. This might be a little bit of information overload, I'm sorry, but hopefully you'll find it useful. Okay, so QuickBooks, the packages are very reasonable. They start at $18 per month for the simple package. It's $27 for the essentials and $35 for the plus package. QuickBooks often have discounted monthly, so if you sign up for 3 months, you'll get it at 50%. Simple is a very basic package. It's not recommended for a growing business. However, if you're a service business, actually this works very, very well. It's such an easy system to use. As Jen said, it can take, once you're set up on there, and the setup's pretty easy, it can take less than a minute to raise an invoice. Very easy to create new customers, and you can just populate all of the saved data, and it's much quicker than using Excel or Word. If you want to take your accounting system to the next level and track your budgets and your inventory and your project costs, then you would need the QuickBooks Plus version. The benefit of QuickBooks against the other softwares is that it has a live support function, which is really useful when you're just getting to grips with using the software. You're able to have a live support chat with someone who can assist you with that. My last point on QuickBooks is, as an accountant, I love it because you can extract data very easily into Excel and analyze it. So we'll then move on to Xero. Xero is great for a growing medium-sized business. The packages start from $20 for the starter package, which is quite restrictive. Actually, with the $20 package, you would get 20 invoices per month and 5 expenses. So it depends on the size of your business with that one. The standard is the one that I generally recommend, and that's $30 per month. And then there's the premium, which just has more functions, and that's $40 per month.
The one thing about the premium is it allows you to work in multiple currencies as well. And I use Xero for my business, and one of the reasons I do is because I work across different markets, and so different clients will ask me to charge in different currencies, so it makes it much easier as well to manage that.
Yeah, it has a demo company, which is really good when you're training and familiarizing yourself with the system. It's really good. And I think that if, as a business owner, you have the time and the capacity to enter a lot of the data yourself, that this is a really good system because it's so user-friendly. And you can quite easily train yourself in it. It's quite strict. It requires, when the setup process for Xero is quite long, but once you get over that hurdle, it's fine. The dashboard is very effective. It has graphs and it looks good. So it's a nice one to use, and you can take that snapshot of data as you enter it to see how you're progressing during a month, not just at a month end.
And when you log in as well, it always tells you how much your clients owe you. So it will let you know if you need to go and find more clients and sell more, or if you need to go and collect the money off of clients who haven't paid you.
Yeah, and what I like is you can import your bank account as well, so which is very easy, and then you can see your bank account at any point in time, and that's all on the dashboard. With both QuickBooks and Xero, actually, there's a mobile app, online invoicing, and the bank transaction uploading and expense import capabilities as well.
Actually, that's really useful, Gemma, if you're out and you're talking to a client and they say, hey, can you send me an invoice for that? And you don't have your computer with you, you can go onto the app within like less than a minute, and the system will automatically go and email that invoice to your client, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I guess it covers the cash on delivery query that we did earlier. That's an easy way to do it, and it really doesn't take long at all. And then not only are you giving an invoice to your client, but you're recording it on your accounting system at the same time.
Yeah.
Next slide, please, Kelly. Zoho. Zoho is approved by the tax authority here in the UAE. It's very good for simple accounting tasks and for small businesses that don't require any advanced features. Prices are very reasonable. They start at 51 dirhams and going up to as high as 146. It's a very basic system, but you can purchase the integrations to add on to it to make it as you grow if you need further functions. One thing that people like with Zoho is that it offers a time management system, so you can track the amount of time that you spend or billable hours on a client, and then you can use that to then bill your clients. For Zoho, we also have an app available for that. That's on Apple, Android, and the iPad. It's very easy to use and similar to QuickBooks and Xero in that it's very user-friendly. It has a bit of a no-frills dashboard, so it's not as fancy as Xero, but it's good. One report on Xero would be that the customer service is a little bit of an issue because they have video help sections, so you don't have that live support function that you get with with QuickBooks.
But, you know, a lot of people are talking about how they can get a reasonable system. And I think a lot of businesses that are starting out are very small find that Zoho really works for them because the price point is very good.
Yeah. FreshBooks, cost effective as well, $4, starting at $4 for the Lite, which allows 5 invoices a month, and then it goes up to as much as $15. So it's still very cost effective. It's very suitable for freelancers and sole traders. And they also offer the mobile app. But what I find with the mobile app is that although you can view your invoicing and you can raise this, the reports aren't available. FreshBooks really focuses on its profit margins, and it works best as sort of a time tracking tool, whereas QuickBooks is more detailed on the reports section.
Gemma, before we go into that, a couple of people have been asking things like, what's the easiest system for them if they have a shop, or an e-commerce business with inventory?
QuickBooks, I would say. They're all very good in their own way, but I like QuickBooks for the fact that when you link your inventory, it's very effective. So I have, as an example of the two clients, to just sort of give some perspective on it. I have a client that sells product in the UAE, and she sells this via Shopify. She bought the app and it integrates, which I mentioned earlier, but it means that she has a live, she can look at her inventory live and she knows how much she has in stock. She doesn't have to go and count it. And she can run a reorder level report at any point in time because Shopify is linked to the system, and it's very effective.
Couple of other questions as well. So Dual wants to know, is it easy switching from one accounting software to another?
Yes, it's easy. It's just then that if you want to easily track your historic data, you have to go between the two products. I would say if you were going to switch, I would do it in the trial period. So I would give it, you get a free trial period with a lot of these softwares. I would say give it a trial period and then switch. Don't wait 12 months to do it, because then you're sort of going to lose the consistency of your data.
Yeah, because another person has said if you start with one system and want to change after a year because needs change, is it easy to transfer data from one software to another?
It's not so easy, depending on what package you've got. What you would, as an accountant, what you would do is you'd take your balances at the end of that period and import them, and then you'd start from scratch, raising invoices, raising payables, and that kind of thing.
Okay. And we're having a few people saying what would be a good one for a service-based business or a consulting service. Everybody wants your top recommendations for the best system for them.
So I'm so torn between QuickBooks and Xero. But for a service-based business, I've got a few service-based businesses and they use QuickBooks Simple, which I quite like. It's quite good. I'll just give an example of a client that uses Xero, so you've got a bit of perspective on that as well. It's an events company that does a few big projects per month, and they need to see the profitability by project. So with Xero, it's very good to be able to, and visible, to allocate costs against a project, and you allocate the sales invoice against that. So he can review his project margin quite easily per month and then make investment decisions based on how much each large project made. So he uses Xero for that.
Okay. Let's see other questions. Okay, we're having quite a few people asking, is there such things as a financial coach for SMEs who can help assess what our business does and help us make decisions like what service we should start with, and so we can prevent migrating later, also help us set up and get used to the system? I'm going to answer that. One, Gemma is a financial coach. This is one of the things that Gemma does, and she helps set it up. But also as well, there are other people who do that, and also there are accountants that will do that as well. For example, that when you onboard with an accountant, that they would probably work with you and be able to help set that up and make sure that your register and ledger and everything is correct for your business as well. Gemma, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've covered everything. Yeah, I think when you sign up with an accountant, that's part of their role, is they'll oversee all of the accounting system that you use and make sure it's right for your business and make sure the ledger is correct. So, yeah.
And look, at the end of the day, what's the most important is that you have a system that you're using. And, you know, everybody has a personal preference. Some people like Xero, some people like QuickBooks, other people are big fans of Zoho. And it also as well depends on what you feel comfortable with as well and what you get used to. I have always used Xero because it's very intuitive for me, but other people always use QuickBooks or feel that Zoho is right for them. And I know some of the banks provide free accounting software as well. So if that's the place that you're in at the moment in your business, go ahead and use that if that's going to work best for your business.
Yeah. And it also doesn't have to be, sorry, can I just expand on that a little bit? It doesn't, I think there's a real fear that it's going to be an expensive service, but it doesn't have to be. You know, it could be a 1-hour training session where you get all of the training that you need and then you get somebody to review it quarterly. It doesn't have to be one of these, when you're starting up, overheads are very important. So it doesn't have to be that. It can be just some guidance to get you on the right path.
Now I just have a question. Kelly, her screen froze and crashed, and so I'm sharing my screen. Does the PowerPoint show up for everyone? You can see, does it say VAT overview session 4?
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, great. This is, I love this section because do you know what's great about VAT? If you have to charge VAT, it means that your business is growing. So that's a good thing, right? We have a quiz though for you because we get asked this question all the time and we want to know what you think about this. If you do not have a VAT number, should you be charging 5% VAT to your clients or customers? Hiba, let's see the poll. Can you launch the poll, or has everybody run into problems? There we go. Let us know your thoughts. Yes or no, do you charge VAT? Let us know what you think. Would you be charging VAT to your customers? Come on, ladies, let's see what you think. Quick question, because we're going to do a deep dive into VAT. Up until a few years ago, we had no VAT. Do you remember when we first started charging VAT? I don't know if any of you had businesses then, but I remember when first started charging VAT, there was mass confusion and people didn't know how to charge VAT and how it worked. And even big companies were charging VAT incorrectly for quite a while too. So we're a little bit more clear on VAT now and how it works, and the tax authority is as well, I think. Okay, Hiba, you can end the poll. So 84% of you said that you wouldn't charge VAT, but 16% of you have said that you would charge VAT. You should always charge VAT. Gemma, talk us through it. What's the answer?
Yeah, unless you have registered for VAT, you must not charge VAT on your invoices. I'll go through now in a bit more detail the thresholds for and what you need to be doing as a taxable supply to be able to register. Okay, so voluntary registration is, you must have 187,500 dirhams of taxable supplies per year. Now that 12 months runs at any point in time. It doesn't have to be your financial year, which is why it's important that you are tracking monthly your performance. And a lot of people ask me, why would we want to register for VAT voluntary? And that's if you have a lot of local supplies here in the UAE. It means that you can reclaim your VAT on any of that, any of the input VAT that you're incurring on your supplies. Now,
so can I, Gemma, just before you go into further detail, because I'm sure a few other people have this, we've been asked, is that revenue or profit?
Revenue. So it's taxable supplies, it's your revenue.
Basically what you're selling. So if you're issuing an invoice, that counts.
Yeah. Compulsory registration is 375,000 dirhams per year. And in this case, you have to register with the FTA. You have to go through the application process, and within 30 days of meeting that target, if you're approaching that target, you should start your application. They'll ask for a number of documents, and they'll ask for some financial statements showing your revenue, and it has to be stamped and signed. The penalties for not following this are quite large, 20,000 dirhams for not submitting your application at the right time. So it's very important that you monitor your sales and so that you can be sure that you're complying.
Okay, before we go to the next slide, a couple more questions. One person has asked, VAT isn't for services-based businesses. Gemma, what's the answer to that?
Sorry, what was the, is it not for services?
Someone said it's not for services-based businesses.
No, it's for all businesses in the UAE.
If you're selling something, it counts. If you have a business, you could be registering for VAT. Someone says, how will authorities know if we do 375,000 if we don't declare it?
I love that question.
They can do spot checks at any time. They can look at your bank account. You're registered with you have your trade license. They can pick a selection of businesses and track that, and they'll check via your bank accounts and the transactions that you have there.
Someone wants to know, does it need to be stamped and signed by an accountant?
No, it's stamped by yourself and authorizing it, that you verify that this is the correct figures. I think I've just seen a comment about the cost for it. You can do the application yourself for free. You could ask an accountant to support you with the application. It depends how comfortable you are.
Okay, someone else, this is a valid question, and I see a lot of confusion about this. that someone said that they need to register for VAT in order to receive orders, but they're not meeting the amount every month, so they're not sure what to do. Do you want to talk about that? So, because I've had this happen as well, where as part of the onboarding procurement process, that sometimes they will say, give us your VAT certificate. And if you're a new business or if you haven't met the threshold, you're not registered for VAT. And typically what happens, and sometimes people who are ticking boxes for procurement don't always know this, that there's a declaration form that you sign saying that you haven't met the threshold, but if you do meet the threshold, you will register for VAT and you will provide them with that VAT certificate.
Yeah, and sometimes they'll be happy with just a letter from yourself confirming that you haven't met that.
Yeah, signed and stamped, of course, because they love stamps for everything. Someone's asked, what about free zone companies?
Yeah, it does. If you're based
it's for everyone.
Mainland, you have to register.
No getting out of it, even if you're in a free zone, even if you're selling to clients in the US and the EU, if you sell over that amount, even if your clients are outside of the UAE, you still have to be registered for VAT. But if your client was, let's say, in the US, would you charge them VAT, Gemma?
Yeah, I'm going to touch on that a bit later on, but yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Okay, let's move on, but I think we've answered a lot of those. Keep your VAT questions coming and we'll answer that in a little bit more detail. Just to verify as well, we have had a few people asking again, how do they know when they meet that amount? And as Gemma said before, that it's tracking on a 12-month basis. So at any 12-month period, if you meet that threshold.
Yeah.
So Poonam asks, is compulsory registration based on the annual revenue?
Yeah. No. Well, it's based on taxable supplies in the 12-month period.
Yeah. Okay.
So once you have done that registration and you are registered for VAT, you must charge VAT on all taxable supplies from the date of registration. And lots of clients ask me, do we that's the price that we charge to our clients, how can we add 5% more on? And the answer is your clients should understand that you're in a VAT jurisdiction now. Therefore, it applies. And if you decide to keep your selling price the same, then you're actually going to take 5% off your margin. So as much as charging the VAT on taxable supplies, there's also a benefit because you can reclaim the VAT on any expenses that you incur. And a question I get asked is, well, I didn't register for VAT, and then 3 months earlier, I spent hundreds of thousands of dirhams on imports or services. And the answer to that is you can reclaim the VAT that you might have spent pre-registration on any stock. However, you must be able to identify that that stock has been used to make a taxable supply post-registration. So if you have the right accounting system in place, that's quite easy to do. If you don't, it can be a little bit of a headache. So you have to be able to differentiate to what you've supplied post-registration against pre-registration. I hope that's clear.
Actually, Gemma, one thing that's actually not in this presentation, but I just thought actually was important as well, is how people display their prices if they are charging VAT. Can you explain to people how they do that? So if they're selling a product or a service, especially online, how are they supposed to display those prices?
Yeah, so you display on your invoice your amount excluding VAT, so your unit cost per item. You then display a line which says VAT at 5% if you're charging at standard rate, and then at the bottom you have your amount including VAT, the amount that's due to settle from your client.
But if you have a website and you're displaying your price on the website, the price is supposed to include the VAT, isn't that correct? So the customer sees the VAT, but when they receive the invoice, the amount is broken down.
Yeah.
Because sometimes as well, companies get that wrong where they'll price on their website excluding VAT, and then the customer will get a different amount where they'll put the VAT on, which is technically not correct. Okay.
It's very important as well to keep your documents now when you become VAT registered, because at any point you could be liable to an inspection. So the documents that the authorities would want to see would be copies of all taxable invoices. So that's anything that you've sold. This could be a market stall, or if you've done a sort of cash on delivery that we were talking about earlier. Any credit notes, and any purchase invoices as well, like for purchases that you've made. And then records of import. So anything that you've brought into the country, you would be subject to 5% VAT at the border. Now this, if you're registered for VAT, will go to your online account. And you can reverse charge that, so you can claim that back, but you must have a bill of entry to back up those goods coming in. And also, if you export goods, that means you're going to zero rate your supply. So you don't charge VAT on any services or products that you supply outside of the UAE. And to back up the fact that you've charged 0%, you need to have a bill of exit.
And again, if you have an accounting system, that a lot of this is already going to be there. So it's not going to be so challenging for you to find all of this information because it lives there as well. And even within the accounting systems, you actually keep a scanned copy of all of the invoices that you receive from your clients or your customers as well. So you can keep everything within there.
So certain industries are VAT exempt, which means they don't charge VAT on their services, and it means they don't register their taxable supplies aren't counted, and it means that they can't reclaim VAT. Only certain industries fall under this bracket, and that is financial services, residential buildings and leases that are more than 6 months, land, and also transportation services. So I guess if you take a taxi or a metro, you'll notice that there's no VAT on any of the receipts that come from them. So you can't reclaim the VAT against those because it's an exempt supply.
Gemma,
yeah.
One question that's come up, somebody actually sent me a direct message and she said that she is VAT registered, but she hasn't met the threshold for this year. So what is she supposed to do with that? What does a business do with that?
Yeah, so if she logs into her FTA account, there is a deregistration option, and it'll tell you in there, you will need to, in the same way that when you register, you provide proof that you have met the threshold, you can provide proof that you're now below the threshold.
Can I just interrupt here? There's somebody who's messing around with the annotate button on the presentation, and it's super annoying. UN Women is going quite out of their way to provide all of this training for people, and it's quite irritating that somebody is doing this continuously. So whoever's doing it, can you please stop, because it's annoying for Kelly to have to keep going in and clearing this off. Okay, thank you. Gemma, another question which comes up a lot is people say, well, we're paying so much VAT for things, but we're not VAT registered. How can we claim back the VAT?
You can only claim back if you're meeting that threshold that we mentioned earlier, therefore registering, which is why it suits a lot of businesses to actually register at the voluntary stage. I also find that as well, a lot of businesses want to register because they want to get their clients used to paying VAT at an early stage, so that they get used to, this is the way the invoices are, so there is a real benefit in registering for VAT at an early stage.
Yeah, and get your sales up, sell more so you can be VAT registered. That's what you need to do.
Okay, so zero rated sales are different to exempt sales in that if you're providing a zero rated sale, you still have to register for VAT. And I think I've seen a few questions in there about if I'm providing a service overseas, yeah, that's zero rated, but you still could meet the threshold even though you're providing a zero rated service. So you still have to record that. So the things that are zero rated are a good or product which the tax authority charges VAT on, but it's set at zero. So you still need to issue a tax invoice, but instead of VAT at 5%, it shows VAT at 0%. And you still display your invoice in the same way with your tax registration number. And there are certain services here in the UAE which are zero rated, which is education, healthcare, and also, as I mentioned, the exports. If you're exporting services or goods, they are zero rated.
Gemma, we're getting a lot of questions coming in saying, I have this kind of business or that kind of business or that kind of business, lots of different types of businesses. Do I need to register for VAT? The answer is it doesn't matter what kind of business you are, what you're doing, if you meet the threshold, whether your customers or clients are inside the UAE or outside the UAE. If you are a registered business in this country, if you have a trade license, if you meet the threshold, you need to register for VAT.
Yeah.
And again, somebody asked at what stage of the startup should VAT registration be done?
It's when you meet that flexible supply.
When you meet the threshold.
Yeah.
And again, lots of people are saying, how much does it cost to register for VAT? It doesn't cost to register for VAT unless you're going to pay somebody to do that registration for you. And someone has said, I'm a consultant under the threshold. Do I add VAT in my invoices? No, you don't add VAT if you're not VAT registered. You can only charge VAT if you are registered for VAT.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a little bit more detail on claiming expenses. So any expenses as a business owner that you incur in the ordinary course of your business, you need to keep a tax receipt and you can claim that back. So that could be fuel to meet a client. If you go to the fuel station, ask for a VAT receipt and you can use that to offset your tax liability. The only grey, there's a few grey areas, but the main one would be entertainment expenses. That is a restricted area. So if you're taking a client out for a lavish meal, somewhere very expensive, you cannot reclaim the input VAT on that kind of expense. However, if you're having a business meeting in the office where you bring in snacks, tea, coffee, that kind of thing, you can reclaim the input VAT. And similarly with employees, so you're taking your employees out for a staff dinner, you can't reclaim the VAT on that kind of thing. So if you're having a meeting in the office, it's fine. If the rule with employees is it must be covered under a contractual obligation to provide them with something, then you can reclaim the VAT. If you provide them with a gift for under 500 dirhams, for example, you can't reclaim the VAT on that. A long service award, a Christmas gift, an Eid gift, that kind of thing, you can't reclaim the VAT.
So no having big parties and claiming back the VAT doesn't work.
No, you'll get caught out. So the fines that the FTA issue here against businesses that don't follow the rules are quite big. So I mentioned earlier the 20,000 dirham for not registering. That's also, you would then get fined for late return, for doing your return late, on top of that, plus any interest on any payment that's due. There's a 5,000 dirham fine for not issuing a tax invoice correctly. So tax invoices have to show your tax number, your client's name and address, their tax registration number. If they are registered, you must show it. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the unit price, show the tax at 5% if it's a 5% supply, and then the total amount. And then there's also a 5,000 dirham for not issuing a tax invoice when making a supply, which is also, we touched on that earlier with cash on delivery. That's why it's very important that you have the processes in place from day one to get your tax invoices printed and given to clients so that you're meeting the regulations.
Question for you, because we keep getting this coming in the chat box, just going back, talking about displaying prices on e-commerce sites. How are they supposed to display their prices online?
Yeah, in the same way. So you have to, if you're registered for VAT, all of the online platforms here have the ability to register your tax invoice number, and they have the format because they have a lot of businesses that are registered. So they should be able to provide a receipt in the same way that you would provide a tax invoice.
Yeah. And so when you're displaying your price on the website, it's supposed to include the VAT as well. Like if you're selling a necklace and you're VAT registered, it should include that 5% and not the price. And then you add an extra 5% on to your customer. Because you can get a fine for that as well, right? From the FTA.
Yeah,
You'll get a fine for displaying your prices wrong.
Yeah.
Can gifts to clients be claimed back for VAT? You already said that, but maybe just repeating that again.
No, you can't claim VAT on client gifts.
And mobile phone bills for businesses?
Can be claimed, the VAT can be claimed on that.
So long as it's for business use and not personal use.
And the ordinary course of business, but yeah.
Invoices.
Oh, I've covered this bit, but again.
Yeah, I think we've.
Yeah, I think
I think the only thing is just the points at the bottom, maybe the PO number and stuff.
And sequential invoice numbering. So yeah, and I think Jen, you're going to touch a bit more on purchase orders in a little bit as well.
Yeah, yeah. So this is my favorite bit. We're going to end on time, but we're going to have a little bit of a chat about, are you leaving money on the table? And I have a question for you. I want to know, do your clients or customers pay you on time? Hiba, can you launch the poll, please?
I'm sorry to be unmute, but I tried to send a question from two main questions by the chats, and they were disregarded. So
no, I see them,
question,
Serene. The first one you were asking if you can have contact details of Gemma, and Kelly has replied with Gemma's details. So if you see Kelly's replied to all of that.
Okay, and the second question on is Gemma advising us to take VAT experts to support us in the registration and reporting or not? Thank you very much.
So to answer that, we've had a few questions about that. You can hire an expert to manage the VAT registration process for you, or you can do it yourself. It depends upon how comfortable you feel about the process. I don't think it's too expensive to hire an expert to go and do it. I know for me personally, I would rather pay somebody rather than get stuck in filling in all of the forms and doing everything on the FTA. But it's a personal preference and also budget as well. But you can look at hiring somebody like Gemma, or there are a number of other companies. But I invited Gemma today and I asked Gemma to speak to everybody because I know she advises a lot of female entrepreneurs and she's very highly regarded within the UAE by other female entrepreneurs. So I wanted her to share her knowledge with everybody here today. So Hiba, can you launch the poll, please?
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Hiba, are you there? Let me just see if I can. Oh, there we go. Okay. So tell me, are your clients paying you on time? We have this question all the time. Big topic of discussion with a lot of business owners is getting your payments on time. While we're waiting for that to be filled in, a few other questions coming in. Gemma, about accounting systems. Someone said, does the accounting software you mentioned help us with the reports that are needed? Do they all provide reports? Gemma?
Yeah, so the Quickbooks and Xero and Zoho, they're all approved by the FTA and they provide great tax reports on there that you can just export into Excel, and it gives you the data that you need to be able to input into your online platform with the FTA.
Great. And one other thing is Astrid wants to know, going back to the reports needed to run your business, is there somewhere that you recommend where we can access templates for P&L, balance sheets, cash flow, and break-even point?
Yeah, there's a lot of templates online, and also if you take a trial, there's free trials on these systems, so you can take a trial and you can view the reports that each system offers and tailor that to your business.
Great. Okay, Hibba, can you end the poll? So 40% of you are very lucky. Your clients always pay on time, and that's super. That's actually higher than what I thought it was going to be, where we've got a little over 60% saying either never or sometimes. So this can be a bit of a problem sometimes. So I want to take you into a bit more detail about why you might be having some challenges when that's happening. Sorry, I'm just trying to move my screen here. That's stuck. Okay, so one of the reasons that we see a lot of times where people are having late payments is that the invoice isn't correct. And the UAE is a bit of a special place when it comes to getting payment and the processes that are done. I've worked internationally, and I would say that the UAE is probably one of the more unique places to try and get money from customers or clients sometimes. But then also there is the challenge on the businesses side where the invoice hasn't been done correctly. You haven't gotten a purchase order. It's called a PO or an LPO. So a purchase order, a lot of times now, a lot of businesses and government entities are requiring it, especially if you're a services-based business, but even if you're a product-based business, that they want you to have a purchase order to be able to issue that payment. And oftentimes the terms for the payment of your invoice don't actually kick in until you get that purchase order. So that's something that you need to understand at the very beginning of your relationship with your customer, your client, especially if it's for a big job, is to be able to get that purchase order, get your hands on that purchase order. So it means that you're going to get paid. Other times too, invoices don't get paid because they're sent to the wrong person. And that is where, I mean, we shouldn't have to be asking these questions, but unfortunately it does happen here, that you need to find out who the person is that the invoice needs to go to make sure that they go and pay you. The other thing that the UAE has here is a very special thing that every company and government entity seems to like to have procurement systems. And they all have different procurement systems. And it takes sometimes up to 2-3 hours to register in their procurement systems. Especially if you're doing a project or a contract, or you're asked to bid for a project or a contract, whether you're supplying goods or you're supplying a service, they want you registered in their procurement system. And if you send an invoice and you haven't registered in their procurement system, or you haven't uploaded it in your procurement system, that will super delay your payment. I also notice, and I try as much as possible to hire small businesses and work with small businesses, the number of times that I get invoices from small businesses and there's no bank account details on the invoice. How am I going to pay you? And this is what's great, is when you have an accounting system that you can have that bank account information directly on your invoice. So you don't need to email people a separate letter or a separate document with your bank account details. Put your bank account details, your IBAN number, your address, the name of the bank, basically all the information that a bank is going to need to enter you and upload you into their system to pay your invoice. And the last thing I would say to you as well is try as much as possible, especially if you're providing services or a product, especially if it's a higher value, to make sure that you have a contract with that client or customer. Because if you don't have a contract, it makes it very, very difficult to go and get money from them. And I always like to recommend as well that if possible, that you mention DIFC courts in your contract. And I'm sure some of you know this, but maybe some don't, that DIFC courts are brilliant because they have a small claims court that you can go and file a claim. And if you have a signed contract and you have the invoice and you show that you've delivered the product or service, you upload all of that into their system and you can file a claim against that customer or client, and very quickly it can be resolved and you can get your money as well. And so to have those things, and I see that a lot of small businesses sometimes don't get that right. And one thing that's mentioned as well is that, you know, don't always rely just on things like bank transfers as well, that to have a payment gateway so you can collect your money right away is super, because it helps you get your money in quicker. But as I was saying as well, that many companies in the UAE are going to refuse to pay your invoice, especially if it's for a larger amount, without a purchase order. So one of the first things that I always do when I am starting a new contract or going to issue an invoice to a client is the first thing I say: do we need a purchase order? Who gives me the purchase order? Who do I need to talk to? What do I need to fill in to get that purchase order? Because if I sit back and wait, it could take weeks. And I've learned this through error, because I didn't realize that I needed to have purchase orders. And it's sometimes meant that my invoice payment has been delayed up to 6 or 7 months because you don't have that purchase order. And you also need an invoice to get paid. And other errors as well that people have with invoicing: if you don't put your client's TRN number on the invoice. Now you have to if you are VAT registered, but also what I have found as well is that some customers like to automatically have their TRN number listed on the invoice, even if you're not VAT registered, and they won't go and pay the invoice without it. So if you make an error on your invoice, it can mean a big delay in your invoice. And sometimes they will not start your payment period. So let's say it's 30 days payment, that they sometimes won't start your payment period until your invoice is submitted correctly. So maybe you submitted it a month ago, it hasn't been paid, it's overdue now, but you didn't include a purchase order, or you didn't have specific itemization for the work that you were delivering, or you didn't even put your bank account details. They won't start the payment process until you have that correct invoice. So a couple of things we wanted to leave you with that we would like you to think about getting for your business. If you don't have a bank account in your company's name, and there are a lot that don't, please do look at getting a bank account into your company's name. It's really, really going to make all the difference for you as well with running your business. Also look at finding an accounting system for your business. You don't need to go for the big top of the end one. There are cheaper ones, as Gemma showed you. Zoho is a very affordable one as well. Also look at identifying what your sales and profits are every month. So not every year, but keep tracking that every month. So it allows you to be a lot more flexible with how you're going to take business decisions, and generate those reports to help you better understand your business. And if your invoicing process maybe isn't correct, if you're not including bank account details on your invoice, if you're sending out an extra piece of paper with your bank account details on it, update your invoicing process so it's going to be quick and easy for you to be able to send out your invoices, so you're going to be able to collect money a lot quicker from your clients. Now, we have one last poll for you before we go, and then we're going to do a big Q&A because there's lots of questions that have come in as well. Hiba, can you launch the last question? And we'd be really grateful if you could fill this in, because we have the UN who really wants to know about what you need and if we need to delve much deeper into finance. So we'd just like to know if it's giving you a much better understanding about what you need to do for running your business, or if there's still gaps that you have to fill in, or if you didn't understand any of it and you need lots of help. It'd be super if you could fill that in. And while everybody's filling that in, more questions. Do I need a company bank account if I'm a freelancer? Gemma?
No, you don't need a company bank account to find a freelancer, but you should have one if you have a trade license. It should be the natural process as you're growing your business to the next level to keep your business account and your personal account separate.
And that also includes as well, if you have an e-trader license, because I've met a lot of ladies who have e-trader licenses who have said, oh, well, I just have an e-trader. I don't need a bank account. You 100% can get a bank account with an e-trader license, and the DED has done deals with a few different banks. I believe it's Rack Bank and Commercial Bank of Dubai, sorry, CBD, who also provide accounts for e-traders. So 100% you can get an e-trader license as well, and they're designed for people who have that. Someone says, is the invoice itself a kind of contract? No. Gemma, you want to go into more detail on that? Or just do we say no?
Yeah, it's very much what Jen said earlier. The purchase order is the legally binding document, and that's the thing that you need before you invoice, because that's your customer confirming that they are going to agree to pay you that amount for the services that you provide.
Someone else has sent me a direct message and say, would assigned terms and conditions which state payment be enough for DIFC court for a collection of debt? No, it's not. You have to mention within your terms and conditions that it's subject to DIFC courts and DIFC law. If you don't mention that, you can't do that. So mention DIFC courts. Does Gemma know in Xero which report would tell me the break-even point for my business, or what other report can give me this information?
No, so Xero doesn't do the break-even point. That's something that you would need to do as part of your forecasting. So you'd know, as we explained earlier, you know your fixed overheads, and then you have a better grasp on your actual gross margin for each product. And the calculation for it's very simple. Your anticipated annual costs divided by the gross profit that you're going to make per unit. That's going to give you the number of units that you need to sell to be able to break even.
Gemma, we're still getting a lot of questions, and I'm getting direct messages. Can you just clarify one last time about when people, so if they meet the threshold for VAT, how that's calculated?
So the threshold for VAT, voluntary, is 187,500 dirhams of taxable supplies that you're making. That's revenue. And the compulsory threshold is 375,000 dirhams. Once you meet that threshold, you must register for VAT with the FTA here in Dubai.
Now, somebody said, and again, going back into VAT, if I deliver a service outside of the UAE with a client from outside the UAE, then it's correct that it's Xero rated?
Sorry, was that outside of the UAE? Service outside?
Correct, yeah, yeah.
That's Xero rated, yeah.
Is that the only benefit of getting a business bank account, to separate personal expenses and business?
Yes, because it allows you to be able to grow your business to the next level. You're identifying your business spend against your personal spend. And as the business grows and you hit your break-even point, you can then forecast a salary that you can pay yourself, and your salary goes into your personal account, and you deal with that separately. I would really recommend it, setting up the business account if you want to take your business to the next level.
We want to play big. We want to go big. We want to grow our businesses. To do that, we need to make big decisions sometimes. If we don't have a registered company, do we need to pay tax still?
You don't have a register, so no trade license or...
If you don't have a trade license, you shouldn't be doing business. Sorry, ladies, but I know some are potentially doing business without a trade license, but you do need to have a trade license to be able to have a business. And there are very cost-effective ways now, depending upon what your business is, to be able to do that. But please get yourself legally registered so you don't end up getting into trouble, because, you know, I know there are a lot of people that do it and don't get caught, but some do get caught, and you don't want to be caught and be faced with a big fine. It's not fun. Let's go. I'm getting a lot of direct messages. Also, people are asking me about when they can have the presentation and the video. Just to let you know, we're setting up an online portal, so you'll be able to access all of the sessions. It might take a couple of weeks, but as soon as the portal is set up, we will be able to go and communicate that with you as well. Someone wanted to know if there's laws in the UAE about accepting payment in cryptocurrency. Is it legal? I don't know.
I'm sorry, I don't know. Maybe I'd need a bit more background on that. You can contact me privately if you like. And
just to find out that.
Would it come down to the simple facts that we discuss a lot, obviously, between us, which is where the money's received and what for? You know, we're constantly having conversations, aren't we, ladies, with female entrepreneurs or those looking to start the business about, and it seems to be almost kind of getting around the rules with regards to, but if I receive my money in here, or if I get my money in Bitcoin, or if I get my money elsewhere, it's, you know, essentially, if you're receiving money for services into the UAE, then you're trading, right?
Yeah.
And this is the thing. So I don't know anything about, you know, the answer to the old Bitcoin question, but I would suspect if it's, you know, regarded as cash and it's in payment of services and it's received into the UAE, I would suspect that very much so that yes. But I just think there's just a very simple kind of almost, but if I'm doing this and if I'm doing that, or if I don't have a business license, well, you know, my answer usually is if you're receiving money into the UAE, if you're receiving any funds for services into the UAE, you know, and you're spending that money in the UAE, and people will often say, well, if I receive my funds in a different country or into my UK bank account, or, you know, there's kind of all of these ways around it. But Gemma, would I be right in saying that when the money comes into the UAE for you, that's when you're receiving funds into the UAE and you're trading in the UAE?
Yeah, and that's when you're making a taxable supply, when you're trading, depending on, doesn't matter how you receive the payment as such, it's the service that you provide.
A few questions, and I'm getting some DMs asking me about DIFC courts and why people would mention DIFC courts. It doesn't matter where in the country you are, if you're in Abu Dhabi or Sharjah or Ajman, if you mention DIFC courts, it allows you to use their small claims court, which means that you can very affordably file a case against your client or your customer to get the money. And they typically pay very quickly. And I've used DIFC courts for clients in the UAE and outside of the UAE. And typically when I file that claim, the amount has been paid within 2 or 3 weeks. They're very effective at getting your payment. So if you are doing contracts, it's a good way to go about it because it can be done quickly and you can get your hands on your money. Just trying to see other questions, if there's anything else. Someone said, as a freelancer with a freelance permit, I don't need a trade license. Your freelance permit is your trade license, correct?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of confusion over the word freelancer round and about. Yeah. People obviously get their information from social media platforms and groups, and it's not always correct when obviously people jump in with their own experience. People use the word freelancer to just describe a solopreneur. They, you know, freelancer to mean free or cheap. But obviously there are official freelancer licenses. Then there's confusion over, is an e-trader license a freelancer license? No, they're completely different things. And I think it's a lot of it's around the language and confusion around the language, really. Payal's asked about future sessions. Payal, if you've registered for this session, you will be on the UN Women mailing list to receive information about everything that's coming up in the future. So you'll get an email with regards to next sessions.
Yeah. One other thing that's interesting, for an online service, do you make the client sign on the purchase order? Gemma?
Yeah, yes. So it's the same. The purchase order is still the legally binding document, doesn't matter what service it is, product or online.
And you can also have terms and conditions that they have to take and agree to that could also have the terms saying things like DIFC courts and what the terms and conditions are for payment. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Jen, can I just ask something?
Yes.
Something? Sorry. I'm just thinking about, so there's freelancer visas now, right? So
yeah.
if you've got a freelance visa, and these are all very new, and I think we need to kind of collaborate on it, and share information on exactly what these are and where to get them from. And these were released by the government to encourage usually people who lead more of like what we'd call like a digital nomad lifestyle. So people who wanted to come to Dubai and work online but be based in Dubai. So a freelance visa is not a trade license.
Correct. Yeah. That's different. That's the new
licenses do exist, but if you've just got a visa as a freelancer, well, no, you don't have a trade license. You have a visa that leaves you eligible to reside in the country, but that's not your business license.
One other thing as well. Someone says, is DMCC a competitor for DIFC? Can DMCC also help in debt recovery? No. So DIFC has a small claims court, which is set up. So it's completely different. Don't think about it as where your business is registered, because you don't have to be registered in DIFC. DIFC has set up a small claims court that you can use to claim your money back. So it's different.
There's also another platform for debt recovery, which is the Chamber of Commerce can assist with that. If you have a membership with them, they'll send letters on your behalf. So it's sort of the stage before the small claims court. And I often found that very effective in my old business when I was recovering debt.
That's a great tip as well. Any other questions, ladies? Because I know people need to go and we want to be mindful of your time.
Sorry, what is the name of the entity at the Chamber of Commerce who can recover the claim on our behalf?
Sorry, what was the name? Sorry, Jen, did you get that question?
Yeah, she said, what is the name of the entity at the Chamber of Commerce that she can reach out to have them help write letters?
Okay, it's the actual Chamber of Commerce that you register with. They'll provide you with a registration, and it's one of the services that they provide. So you'll be able to find out about that online. It's a membership with them.
You covered this before, but I think maybe a few people missed it. They want to know if there's a charge for deregistering for VAT.
There's no charge for deregistering for VAT unless you're using an accountant to do that. There is a charge for deregistering your company though, that you should be aware of. So that's the thing that you'll be charged for. And that certificate when you deregister from your licensing authority is what you'll need to upload to the FTA.
Another question on software. Somebody wants to know if it integrates with the payment gateway and the bank.
Yes, both QuickBooks and Xero are very good at that. And it really automates everything and makes things a lot easier.
Now, it depends upon which bank you're with, because some banks are better than others because they need to have a specific API to feed into your accounting software, and some banks have it and some banks don't. And some work with other products, but they should. The other thing as well that you can do, depending upon what other systems you're using, is you can also connect it with other systems. So if you're using Shopify, or if you're selling online courses and you use something like Kajabi, you can get a third-party integration called Zapier. And they say there's a Zap for that. So for example, that if you sell a product, that Xero or QuickBooks or Zoho or whatever you're using will automatically go and create an invoice, and you just need to look in your drafts folder. I know for Xero, because I use that function for Xero, you look in drafts and then you approve every invoice, but it pre-makes out the invoice for you, so you don't have to manually go and create it as well.
Such a useful tool. And back to the bank accounts, I know that some don't work, but a lot of them, and there's been some issues with Emirates MBD recently where the system went down, but you can always get the statements in a CSV format, in the correct format, and you just upload it with one click and it gives you the same reconciliation tool.
And again, I'm getting DMs about VAT. The VAT, for you to have the threshold, it's rolling months, not in one set year, it's rolling months.
Yeah.
Any other questions for us, ladies, or shall we wrap it up?
Can
Yeah,
I have
we
a
have
question
one question.
Yes.
on
Yeah.
audio?
Okay, hang on. We've got two people speaking at once. I can see Iman on my screen right now.
Yes.
Iman, do you want to go first?
Oh, okay. First, thank you for this workshop and hope for more and more like this. My question is, I just started my business and it's for t-shirts. My problem is I have an artist doing the artwork. I do the design and the idea for, I'll tell her the idea for the t-shirt. And also I have someone who printed the, she is have her business, but I partnered with her like a cooperation for doing the printing. So I have confusing how to first say, have a price for the t-shirt. يعني sorry.
Excuse me. You can talk in Arabic. I will translate.
يعني عندي البزنس تبعي انه في اكثر من شخص هو متشارك فيه، فكيف انا بدي حدد سعر السلعه، وبنفس الوقت كيف بدي احدد الحصص تبع الاشخاص اللي عم يتعاونوا معي.
Okay.
يعني في عندي الفنانه اللي عم ترسم الرسمات، انه هي بدها نسبه، ما بدها يعني انه.
So the question, Jen and Gemma, is that Iman, she's having different partners. I mean, everyone doing certain work on the business, and she's wondering, and even she's not able to decide on the pricing of the item, neither on how to distribute the profit on the business partners. I mean, business contributors, whoever is either participating in certain work.
Yeah, I mean, the share of the profits should be, I would suggest that that's set up just before you set up the business. You make a call on which person's going to do which tasks, and for that, what percentage they get. Pricing, I would say, Jen, you touched on it earlier about how you mark up your costs. You know, first it's identifying exactly how much it costs to produce the t-shirt, the item, and then you mark that up by 50%. It depends on what sort of industry you're in, but that's a suggestion. That's what I would suggest, at least 50%.
Yeah. Time for one more question, and then we're going to wrap it up. There was one other person who said they had a question. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, if I may. Gemma, you briefly mentioned that VAT on imported goods can basically be offset via this reverse charge process.
Yeah.
But there's something that always confuses me. So we import physical goods and we sell them here in the country. If we can offset this later, why do we have to pay it in the first place? So our importer code is linked with our FTA tool. So automatically any imported goods will show up there as VAT on imports that has to be paid. So why does it show up there in the first place if we can anyways reclaim or get this cost offset later?
Yeah. So if you're registered for VAT and you're importing products into the country, the customs code and account should be linked. Now you can only use the reverse charge mechanism to offset that in your VAT return. If you didn't use that reverse charge mechanism, you would have to pay that VAT at the end of your quarter. To use the reverse charge mechanism, you must ensure before reclaiming that you have all of your bills of imports for every item that you imported. And once you have that in your VAT return, you can input the reverse charge amount, which matches the amount that you will see automatically in there as the VAT on imports. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're saying as long as I have the BOE document, the bill of entry document, I can offset that cost.
Make sure that you keep those documents in file for each quarter.
Thank you.
Yeah. One last thing before we wrap this up, because there's one other question which has come up, which I think is quite important. Do we need to keep hard copies of printed clients' invoices, or are digital ones enough?
Digital ones are enough. I like hard copies. I'm a little bit old school, but digital, as long as you have the taxable invoice record available to print at any point, then that's fine.
Yeah, and I like digital. Sorry, I don't like the paper. And I keep all of mine within Xero. You can keep it within Xero for each of your clients as well. So you can do either. Okay, ladies, thank you so much. Gemma, it was wonderful. Thank you so much for spending a couple of hours with us and sharing all of your finance and accounting knowledge, because this is a huge area for females who are owning their businesses in the UAE. And I think we'll have a number of other sessions as well and delve deeper into this. So thank you to everybody for your time today. Thank you to UN Women and to Nama. And thank you to Kelly for moderating for us today and doing the PowerPoint until it broke. There's always something with Kelly. And thank you so much to all of you. And remember, we are all stronger together when we work together. So have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll see you soon.